Hello, everyone, and welcome in. My name is Addison Willman with Martin Supply, and this is the Operate Better podcast, where we help you operate better. Today, I'm joined by another member of our great safety team, Jim Bell. Jim, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jim Bell. I'm the regional safety specialist for Martin based out of Birmingham.
And how many years in the safety business do you have?
Addison, I've got about probably close to 20 years in safety, um, a lot in PPE and fall protection specifically, and other areas, lockout, tag out, but mostly in the PPE arena.
Right. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about fall protection and kind of what you've been seeing recently, some recent trends that you've seen going out into people's facilities and things like that. So, what exactly did you want to talk about today?
Well, I talk a lot about fall protection with folks. They're asking me questions on it because of my exposure and the years of when I actually drove a particular truck to demonstrate fall safety to customers on site, and I would do drop tests and things like that. And so they would call me in to do a discussion around fall protection or even inspect their harnesses and their lanyards and all their gear. Um, and so one of the things that I think is overlooked quite a bit as it relates to fall protection is anchor points and anchor, really, where do you tie off to? A lot of the times when I get in front of a customer, um, they'll want me to go over, just the ABCs of fall protection. Okay, so when you cover the ABCs, that's trying to cover the whole shooting match in about 1 hour. So it's a pretty quick, it's like a Cliff Notes version of fall protection, but you could spend a couple of days or more on fall protection. There's been books written about it, so it gets pretty deep in the weeds, especially when you get into other things. So the further aspects of fall protection. But for most safety people and for those that use it, it's so important to learn about those ABCs. So that's kind of the starting point. So when you talk about the ABCs, that's talking about the anchor point and anchor connection, the connecting or the body wear, B for the body wear, the harness, and then the C for the connecting device, which is either a self-retracting lanyard or a shock absorbing lanyard. So a lot of times, and then you'll start with talking about the body wear, and then which is the B, and you'll start then the C. But so many times, I think the anchor point gets kind of glossed over, if you will. And planning for your fall protection is so paramount that you identify the anchor point where a person's going to tie off. Most accidents happen because a person never ties off. They're wearing their harness, they have a lanyard or a retractable, but they don't make the final connection. Or they tie off to an inappropriate anchor point that will give way in a bad situation. Or they're using the same point that's the point we've always used, and people don't trust it, but they don't question it either because they don't know anything else. I mean, I've been asked questions before, what do I tie off to? A cloud? Because there's nothing above them that they can tie off to. And so that's kind of, people get frustrated about where they choose the anchor point, and that's the cornerstone really of fall protection. You've got to have a good solid anchor point to tie off to that in the case of active fall protection, you're going to have something that everything works together as a system. We spend a lot of time on the harness, we spend a lot of time on the connecting devices, but not enough time on the anchor point. So it's so important. So when you're talking about anchor points, you're talking about specific things. It has to be rated for 5,000 pounds for you or me to look at it, and it has to be substantial. I always typically say it has to be able to hold a truck. I mean, a regular pickup type truck, hold it in that area. So it has to be fairly substantial. It can't be, your fire suppression systems or PVC piping or something like that. It's got to be really heavy duty. In the safety world, it has to really meet at 2 times the max arresting force. So that is 1,800 pounds. So somebody else can sign off on less than 5,000 pounds. But for you or me, the layperson to look at it, it's got to be substantial.
Yeah, Jim, I've never worked on billboards or climbed buildings or anything like that, but I imagine if I were up there, I would want something really secure to tie on to. So, if I'm a worker and I'm trying to find a good place to tie on to, how do you find those secure places?
Well, that's usually, Addison, where I get called in at that point to take a look. at that. And as the Martin safety specialist, I'll come in and consult with the safety director or with a supervisor to take a look at several places that they may have to tile above that area where they need the fall protection, where there's a drop in the elevation. So, for fall protection, you need to have fall protection in general industry. Anything that's over 4 feet high, and it could be other than the ground. In construction, new construction now, it has to be 6 feet. There's a different ruling, and there's different heights. You get scaffold workers, which is 10 feet, and structural steel workers, which is 15 feet. So yeah, that's one of the things I would do is come in and actually go to look specifically at those spots and say, I agree that that's a good tile point, or we need something needs to be built and established, or there could be a temporary because you have two different types of anchor connectors, either fixed or temporary.
Okay. And what is the process for, you going on site and looking at those sort of things, and what exact requirements are you looking for?
Well, when I'm going on site, I'm actually going to visit where they need the fall protection, understanding, okay, can we potentially engineer out the fall protection? That's a question that a lot of people miss because if we can provide railing or something like that to keep them from where they could fall, then they don't have to make a choice, literally. They don't have to choose what to tile to, and they don't have to wear the harness and the lanyard. But when we can't do that, then we have to establish a tile point to keep them from getting their center of their body over that fall area. So that's where a customer would call me or have me come out and talk with them. That's a service that Martin provides to our customers and to, pretty much anybody. If they call me, I'm so ingrained in the fall protection area that I like to go out and try to feel like, because I feel like I'm affecting people's lives on a daily basis, because there's so many people that don't know what to do. So let's find a good tile spot, maybe make it fixed, may have to use a temporary device, and there's a plethora of different devices that you can use. So finding something in there to complete the picture of fall protection so you have the full ABCs and you're connected and you're safe when you're working.
All right. I think that's all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything you want to add on here at the end?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a great subject for most people. Again, fall protection and the lack thereof is the number one most cited violation by OSHA every year. I mean, every year. I've been doing this 20 years. I've never seen a change. Fall protection training is usually in the top 10. So that's another issue that people don't get enough training, and especially in today's workforce where people are moving around so much, so frequently between basically job gigs, they don't get the training. And so that's real important to me to make sure that they learn something now that they could apply to this job and it may apply to the next job wherever they go. Or if they see somebody doing the wrong thing, correct them. You've learned something today. Somebody didn't get to come to the training. You may save their life, literally. I mean that. So that's one of the things that I really focus on and take to heart when I'm talking about fall protection. And OSHA has a national stand down week every year focused solely on fall protection. So that's it's a critical factor. A lot of people look at that. A lot of companies look at that, and definitely am able and willing to help anytime. I cover the Southeast, so that's where I live.
Right. And we have a ton of our fall protection resources. We have PPE available. We have more information on our trainings all over on our website. That's martinsupply.com. And Jim, where can people reach out to you?
Best way to be just probably via email. That's jbell@martinsupply.com. That's JBELL at martinsupply.com or my phone. I'm usually always accessible. Through your rep, through your local rep that calls on you and you see on a monthly basis, they are the point person for you for Martin Supply. And I'm that artillery that comes to, bring all the resources that I have behind me for various manufacturers that provide that help too. So put us into play. That's where we can help. Martin really brings a lot of breadth and depth to the safety field.
All right. And I think that's going to be it for us today. Thank you all for watching, especially if you made it all the way to the end of the video. As always, we greatly appreciate it, and we will see you in the next one.